Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to the Public Works and Gain Reduction Committee. I'm Council Member Joe Buscaino, Chair of Committee. Today's Wednesday, December 4th. Hope you're all doing well. We're here in, what room are we in? 1060. And I have the time of 2:15, joined by the Honorable Tom LaBonge, who you'll hear from in a minute. We are waiting Council Member Gil Sedillo's. He should be here any minute. But if I can take item 1 first so we can get moving on the agenda. If you can read that in. I apologize for the delay. We had a late council meeting, late council session today that ran late, so I appreciate your patience. If we can read item number 1 into the record, please.
Okay, item number 1 is a report from the Chief Legislative Analyst relative to the implementation of various non-standard streetscape elements relative to the construction of the Broad Museum in downtown Los Angeles, and this was continued from May 8th, 2013.
Great. We have members. Paul, I see you. Come on up. Thank you very much. We have Deborah here from the Broad. Come on up, Deborah.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Paul Sedillo's office. Previously, the council had approved certain non-standard and other implementations for the Broad Museum. And at the time the council took that action, they also asked our office to have discussions with appropriate departments and representatives of the Broad Museum about the liability issues associated with the non-standard items that are being implemented. After a number of discussions and some robust discussions, and we came to an agreement, and our report reflects the liability issues and those implementations, those equipments that the Broad will take liability responsibility for, plus the seeking and getting an R permit for those implementations. So we're happy with the results of our discussions, and we only really have one recommendation that in the report that BOE go back and look at the permits that have been issued and make sure they comport with the items in our report.
Thank you, Paul. Joined by Deputy City Attorney Ted Jordan as well. Do you want to chime in on this, Mr. Jordan?
No, I'd be happy to. Our office was part of the discussions. We met on a number of different occasions and went through multiple sort of drafts and redrafts and edits. So it reflects a lot of very hard work that people participated in, and we support the report and the recommendations.
Appreciate that. And it seems that the city's main issue here is when it comes to streetscape improvements, it's fold into liability issue, right?
Yes.
I just want to make sure we don't take it too far. How much does the city pay out every year on claims regarding relating to injuries or damages in the public right-of-way? And of these, how much is due to the city's approval of non-standard streetscape elements as opposed to injuries or damage due to poor maintenance of street sidewalks and parkways?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers, especially on claims that would relate to non-standard elements. I think overall, the numbers I've heard have been several $1 million a year, but I think that is primarily more of sidewalk slip and fall type things.
Right. Yeah, it's more.
You don't hear much of the non-standard streetscapes.
No, for a non-standard element, the traditional permit would include indemnification, and so there would be, the city could be sued on something like that, but then we would typically bring in the property owner.
Got it. For the Broad Foundation, Deborah, thank you for joining us. Can you identify yourself for the record?
Yes, Deborah Cantor, General Counsel for the Broad Collection, which is the builder of the improvements.
And looking forward, I know the Broad Foundation has just been a champion in this project and working hand in hand with the city. We thank you for your commitment. It's important when folks want to come into the city, foundations want to come into the city and invest in the city. We want to make sure we streamline some of these processes. Do you have any recommendations on how the city can improve its process?
Careful there.
Be careful. I know.
I really commend the CLA's office. They have worked very hard to wrangle a bunch of different city departments to come to a consensus. And this process, I think, has not been problematic at all. There are some processes.
Sure, always some
out
issues,
there.
right? Okay. I appreciate that. Very carefully tread response. Okay, so joined now by Mr. Sedillo. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Jordan, any ADA issues in this project that we should be aware of?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, with that, we have a motion. Do you have any questions on, I know you just joined us, Mr. Sedillo.
Being briefed.
You're being very fantastic. Any issues on item 1?
No.
Okay, so we'll approve this item and send this to council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Progress is good. Thank you.
It is.
Thanks for your presentation. Joined by Mr. Labange here, and he is here on item number 3. And I do have a card on item number 3, and we'll take the card first. We can have Henry Duronslet come on forward. Welcome.
In the meantime, would you like me to read that into
Please
the record?
read item 3 into the record. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, item number 3 is a motion from Councilmembers Labange and Councilmember Sedillo relative to transferring the function of street cleaning from the Bureau of Street Services to the Bureau of Sanitation. This was also referred to the Energy and Environment Committee.
Hi, I think I butchered your last name. Forgive me. Give me your last name, sir.
Henry Duronslet.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm a motor sweeper operator with the Bureau of Street Services.
Mic close to your mouth.
Oh.
There you go.
Been a motor sweeper operator for the past 14 years. My experience is that Street Services has done street sweeping, and we've done it well. I've seen a lot of people leave. I've seen very few, I've seen nobody come in, to be honest with you. Nobody's replaced the positions we've lost. Certain days, we travel 85 to 90 miles to go sweep routes in another district. About 25 to 30 of that would actually be sweeping. Bottom line is, we need our workforce replenished. We don't necessarily need to be moved or being taken over. We just need to have our bodies replaced. We need our truck support. We're low on truck drivers right now. And with all of that we have, we still get the job done. So it is my hope that you would pretty much leave us where we are.
Very good. Thank you, Henry. Thanks for your service to the city as well. If I can call up members of the Street Services and Sanitation to please come forward. And I'm going to turn this over to the maker of the motion, Mr. Labange, who's here.
Thank you very much.
Welcome, Mr. Labange.
Mr. Buscaino, and thank you, Mr. Sedillo, and thank you to the motor sweeper operators of Los Angeles. This has nothing to do with anything personally. It has all to do with Public Works. You're all Public Works. And Public Works is a very important department. Next to Public Safety, Public Works, Public Health, Public Education, the Public Humanities, the Library, and Parks are key. Efficiencies are very important. Early on in my nearly 40-year career, there was always a complaint that sanitation collected one day, but street cleaning was the day after. Why wasn't it coordinated? There always was this bell ringing. The last several years, and a lot had to do with the pressure brought on Mr. James by federal court on the Hyperion and sewers and all this stuff here, that we really focus on sewers and drains and what we do there, all that work that has been done. Also, during this time, people have accelerated their inability to get the trash in the basket or trash in a container, and there's been more on the street. And I know that if it's all in one department, I believe it could be effective, because right now, this piece of trash, and I know you can't see it, this is the curb, it will go down the drain and sit in the drain, and that's sanitation. But yet, if it's in the street, it's street services. And all I'm asking the is to look, because this doesn't happen overnight, that if you took one part of the city, whether it's San Pedro, and said, because you have a big yard in San Pedro, right, Joe? Right
Yes.
there, it's a beautiful old stack. You know where that old stack's from?
North Gaffney.
Yeah, you know what the old stack's from? They used to burn trash there. Right, okay, incinerator.
Right.
So I love the lettering
Call
on
it the
that.
tower, though.
Tower. Very good. That's
right.
smart. That's why you're general manager there. Yeah. That being said, whether you take an area of the city and see how effective it could be, I don't want to turn the switch overnight. I do know we've worked, because we have reduced staffing, many business improvement districts have their own sweeping that supplements what the city does. We don't do streets like we used to because we don't have the people. But at the same time, we have the trash. And if I look at you and you're responsible for all trash in the street and you're responsible for all streets in their conditions by way of the asphalt base, which is a big challenge, that relieves a burden that you as a manager has and puts it in sanitation, which has had ability to grow and look at in this area here. And this is what I would ask this committee to look at, because we're fooling ourselves that if you look at, I look at streets all the time, and I'm proud to say that the United States Senator Dianne Feinstein, who addressed this at the League of Cities last year, said the one thing I do when I go to cities is look at their trash, where it is in the corner, where it is in the gutter, where it is on the street, what could be done to make it different, because it is about a broken windows concept. If people see the streets clean, then they think, I live in a neighborhood that people care about, and that support is necessary. So this is what I'm asking, to do a study, and hopefully in the budget year we can provide some money to look at an area, because I don't think you could do the city overnight, but just look at the study and see the effectiveness, because your people come out of Doris Place Yard and they go for the drains. But if we're able to effectively sweep the street, there'll be less drain work because we're not there. And truthfully, we don't sweep streets like, is it every 6 weeks, or when they used to say that, when Ed Longley was here? Anybody remember Ed Longley?
Well, if you're talking about the open routes, they're being swept every 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, but
Yeah.
the postal routes are being swept.
I've been a councilman 12 years. I've only seen a sweeper once on my street.
You're always working, Councilman. That's why you never see the...
No.
How often do you see your trash truck, Councilman?
Every Thursday. It's a holiday, man. I love it. All three, and they all love them. So that's all I'm asking, committee. And is anyone from the legislative office here, or Mr. James, want to voice anything, or anybody else, CIO's office? Because I think it's important.
You're the president of the Commission, Board of Public Works. Kevin James, thank you, Commissioner, for being here.
I've had this idea, by the way, Joe, for many years.
8 years, I heard.
Is it 8 years? Is it 8 years?
A long time. I heard a long time, yeah.
Right.
And let me just say from the board's perspective, thank you, Councilman, for the motion, and thank you, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity just to say a word here. The opportunity, and I see with the board as part of this motion, the opportunity for us to look at the ability to provide a more efficient and effective service to the residents is what interests the board. We are one department. We have 5 bureaus. We work well together, but we are always looking for ways to improve the product for the residents of the City of Los Angeles. So with that in mind, we welcome the opportunity to find the best way to provide the service to the residents.
Appreciate that.
Whether we, and again, just to add, Mr. Chair, whether it is, it may well be leaving it where it is, whether it's a transfer or whether it's some sort of a hybrid collaboration. The key here is to find the best way to provide the service as far as the board's concerned.
Got it. Mr. Sedillo? Give us some, if you can, a breakdown of how the service is funded. Through special funds, general fund? Nazario, if you can.
It's all special funds. Just so you get an idea, currently the Bureau of Street Services manages the largest, greenest, and most efficient street sweeping program in the nation. I'm talking about big cities. We sweep, although Councilmember LaBonge never sees our sweeper, and we sweep approximately enough miles in a year to go 12 times around planet Earth. That's the amount of mileage that we sweep every single year. Furthermore, we have an efficiency of over 95%. Other cities like New York barely have 75%. So we will be more than happy to work, with the CAO, with our sister Bureau of Sanitation, to determine if this proposal is fiscally responsible and if it provides a better level of service. I take the opportunity to highlight, the great efforts of the men and women of the Bureau of Street Services, the efforts that they perform every single day, because the majority of the sweeper operators that we have work religiously every single day. They don't take vacation, they don't take time off, because the day that they're off, they know that the street is not getting swept. So I appreciate the work that they do, and once again, we'll be more than happy to work with the CAO, the board, and sanitation to get
How do, when it comes to street resurfacing, how are the street sweepers used when it comes to
That's
street
part of the report that we're going to bring to you. The reality is more than what the eye can see. Our sweeper operators, use a pooled approach. Basically, our guys do more than just sweep streets. That's a reality. We have, at any given day, more than 40 roving crews doing resurfacing, special projects, urban forestry work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And in order to protect the environment and in order to avoid violations from, let's say, AQMD, stormwater violations, we must have a sweeper. So it is this combined approach that we use that makes our operation extremely successful. Otherwise, we would need dedicated forces, sweepers, to take care of all those different functions.
What's
But
your
that's
annual
what
budget?
makes us, say that again?
What's your annual budget for street sweeping?
It's approximately, I'm going to say, and please don't quote me, turn off the microphone, probably it's about $12 million.
And sanitation, Mr.
Zaldivar.
Are you interested? Is sanitation interested in absorbing this service?
Well, let me speak to the connectivity that street sweeping has for sanitation. Councilmember LaBonge has been has spent quite a bit of time looking at a storm drain system. In fact, he's very more than knowledgeable with our whole trash TMDL and the catch basins screens that we have installed all throughout the city. All of that is for one purpose, and that is to comply with our stormwater permit, which has street sweeping as one of the required best practices. In fact, on your question earlier about the funding sources for street sweeping, I think 1/3 of it, roughly $8 million, if I remember correctly, comes from the Stormwater Pollution Abatement Fund, which is a parcel fee on all property owners in the city. That is, so roughly out of the $28 million, $8 million of it goes for street sweeping. So street sweeping is extremely important for our own compliance, the city's compliance with the stormwater permit. And just as Councilmember LaBonge alluded to, it has a interrelationship with what goes into the drain and what doesn't. And now how a catch basin and the entire storm drain system operates relative to what gets in it. So that's the relationship that which I believe is what prompted the council member to look at the interrelationship of whether there may be some efficiencies just by the interdependencies of the different programs.
I see. Thanks, Maria. Mr. Sedillo?
For any study, obviously, I'm always concerned that we're looking at this in real time and, where we're headed. And for me, important in that is where were we? So whatever concerns we have, we want to make sure they're not driven exclusively by staffing and budget. So any study I'd want to show us where were we at the optimum? How were we functioning at optimum services? What was the staffing? What were the budget costs? What is our current staffing and budget costs? And in real metrics. And then what would be the optimum today with new challenges, new population growth, new density, new, changing landscape. And so those are important questions for me in any study. Obviously, in the process, at some point, for me, I'm always interested to hear from the collective bargaining agreements, or the members of the collective bargaining agreements, and get a feel and a sense of what the impact would be, what requirements would we have for going forward. Is this, I don't know, I don't know what's in people's mind, but I'm interested in knowing, is this simply moving around people? Is this figuring out, can we get synergies from a tighter interrelationship? Exactly what is the best model for us to get an optimum over the city.
I think we should be able, Councilman, to provide all that information that you are requesting, and in addition, provide to all of you a menu of options so you can determine which one is the most feasible option.
And if I could,
Yes, Mr. Labange.
if I point to Exhibit A on the wall, the picture of the Port of Los Angeles, to the far right is the Los Angeles River. One of the biggest sins that we do as a city is, after the first storm, the flush of trash through our street system goes through the drains into Long Beach, and it's a sad picture. And that picture, I think they had the Los Angeles Times maybe about 8 years ago, where I really started to drive to say, is there a better way that we could do this, to be more effective in all ways, to keep it out of the oceans and rivers and drains? And I truly think there is. And also, I do think that, as Mr. Sedillo's point, in 1978, when I was started in 1976 full-time, 74, 75 during the summer for Mayor Bradley youth program as a college supervisor, sweeping streets. In 1978, there were 273 trucksters. Those were gentlemen on Cushman motorcycles, three-wheelers, 278, and they were all eliminated. They swept Broadway by hand, they swept Wilshire, Hollywood Boulevard, Lankershim, Van Nuys, etc., and even they had some in San Pedro. But they were eliminated because we couldn't do that service anymore. The hand cleaning was eliminated. And just recently we had to eliminate from street services the pickup of our trash baskets. And we're now trying to refine that, but we do have less and less complaints that are going on there. I just want to do what's efficient. And I also truly believe, too, from a personnel matter, because I heard this in the street, not all sweeper operators are real sweeper operators yet.
That is correct.
And we gotta unload before we hire another person. We gotta promote those who are doing the job now, because they're working not out of class, but whatever the proper term is for that. But let's look at this and see what we can do. What other cities? I think New York City has sanitation all in one. But I would take the Crew 152's sweeper or 252, because I know I wouldn't get a street paved in my district if I took that sweeper away. They could have all the sweepers they want because you're paving a new street, so that's okay, Nazario. Anyway, I think that's inside talk, Joe. Okay, so thank you. This is a good start, and I want the CAO. Who's here for the CAO's office? Right here. I want you to do something about it. Come up with a study and look at it, because the people count on us. Okay, David, thank you so much.
Great. Let me ask you before we close this item, streets, how many of these units do we have in our fleet right now, these street sweepers?
About 100.
We have approximately 100, and in reality, at one point we had 120, and that's what we really need to satisfy the needs. But we have only 100, and as a result of the understandable cuts to balance our budget, we have, of course, the normal delays in getting the sweepers, repaired and properly maintained, because we don't have the necessary resources in the city to keep them properly maintained. So it's a daily dilemma trying to make sure that all the sweepers are fully operational, and that's part of the great job that the employees of the Bureau of Street Services do every single day, that they maintain the sweepers before sending them to, the shop for repairs.
How many street sweepers do we have operating?
Approximately 100. Oh, operating 100. That's a minimum
But
requirement.
not all are on class, right? They've taken the position. So
we have right now
Personnel, how many?
One of the
personnel
great things that we have in the Bureau, we certify our motor sweeper operators through a class that I personally teach that is certified through LA Trade Tech. And basically we make our employees certified CNG motor sweeper operators. And right now we use sub-operators, meaning employees who are maintenance and construction helpers, maintenance laborers. We certify them, we give them the licenses, and they run sweepers. At any given day, we have approximately between 20 and 25 sub-operators running sweepers.
Do they get the same compensation?
They get a bonus. They don't get the same salary as a normal
that should
motor
be
sweeper
resolved.
operator.
Okay.
Well, I want to thank both Ms. Labange and Mr. Sedillo for introducing this motion and always trying to find ways for more efficiencies in the city of Los Angeles. And to answer Mr. Sedillo's concern about staffing levels, that's going to be part of the report and the workload and also the fiscal impact. So, Mr. Arano, thank you so much for taking on another report And Henry, who continues to do great work in the city, we thank you for your service. And 60 days, report back. Are you okay with 60 days?
Hey, I don't want to miss this budget year.
Who cares about the budget, right?
Okay? You got it? After 8 years, I've been from
But last time I committed to that time frame, we missed it sorely.
I know.
So we will do it as quickly as we can.
Okay. Tom wants to go out. Okay. We'll shoot for a 60 days report back. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have speakers on item number 2. We'll take item number 2 now. If we can. You know what? I know. Does Enrique have to leave? We can do 4. Mr. Salvador is still here. Let's do. Let's take item number 4 since Enrique is still here. And I'm going to turn it over to the maker of the motion, Mr. Sedillo. Michael, if you can read item number 4.
Item number 4 is the motion from Councilmember Sedillo, Wesson, et al., relative to outline a proposal for the enhanced neighborhood cleanup program throughout the city, including identifying funding and associated costs. This one was also referred to the Energy and Environment Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Sedillo.
Mr. Chairman, we've had an incredible early success with the program that we piloted for our district. We marshaled resources, we pulled and found, nickels and dimes in the cushions left behind from our predecessor. And we've did this great, some people would say this great leap forward, this great initiative to clean our streets and alleys. And so we've had an incredible success early on. I think it's 800 tons bulky items and trash picked up in neighborhoods. We cleaned 238 alleys. We've had cleanups. We've marshaled civic leaders, neighborhood councils, school outreach, churches, community cleanup, environmental services. A whole range of people we've pulled into this effort to clean the streets of the city. As a senator, I was very fortunate to travel places around the world and in the country. And I can't tell you that I don't think anything's more important than having clean streets and a clean environment. For us, it's our broken window theory. Regardless, and I've been in San Antonio, it's a place I've seen communities rich and poor. You can't find one speck of trash. You can't find one top of a straw, piece of paper that covers a straw. It's just extraordinary. And I think that for the city, as we move to become and continue to move to become a world-class city, that we have to be a clean city. I heard someone talk about, Senator Feinstein talking about as she goes around and sees cities around the world. And so what we're offering here is a proposal so that we can have this discussion so that we can do this citywide. We've committed about 1.2 million. It came from us. We used funding we found CDBG. We're looking at a commitment to our AB 1290 funding. But we don't want to restrict it to that. This should be, we believe, a citywide initiative that we can fully fund. If you did this 15 times what we committed in our district, it would be 25 million. In addition to that, we've talked about changing the infrastructure, and we bought a handful of small, compact trash cans, compressors, the solar-powered compressors that signal to the Bureau when it's time to come and pick up the trashes. The city should proliferate those. So the whole total ball of wax, bottom line, at somewhere around 24 million, 25 million, we could have 1,500 of these. Ours have a brand on ours that say, keep it clean, and CD1, and we've got branding and logos and everything tied to it. We could proliferate that around the city. It could be a lot less, and I think what we're going to ask is to see what the numbers would be for this, because our city was probably arguably the most acute. There were alleys that you could not enter, and block-long alleys just packed with trash and debris and graffiti. And those are now clean, I'm proud to say that they're clean. Now the follow-up, once you clean them, the follow-up's easier. That's one. Two, you change the infrastructure, so now people see bright places where to put their trash. That's significant. But I think the third thing most important for the city is that we have an ability to change the culture of the city. And I think, at least in our district, it had become too acceptable. People sitting at a bus stop and there's a trash can a few feet away and they just throw away their litter. The bulky items, we've changed that with our new policy so that we'll be picking them up by appointment. So people won't see that blight out there on a consistent basis as people anticipate when it's going to be picked up. Now we'll move to a point where people have an appointment and it gets picked up at that time. So those changes, we think, if they can work in the first district that had perhaps the most challenging, that then they could work citywide, and I think would move the city a lot further forward, both in public safety, in economic development, and ultimately creating for our environment a better and safer city. And so we bring that proposal forward based on our early successes. They've been documented. In my 20 years of public life, I don't think I've ever had a positive piece in the LA Times like I saw, both on the cleanup and an editorial, and it was merited, and I think the city should move that forward on a citywide basis.
Well, let me say, Mr. Sedillo, I'm really proud of your efforts and you and your team and the city coming together to improve the quality of life. That's what we're here to do, being responsive to those needs. And I was there at City Council chambers. Mr. Sedillo sits to my left. And when you first placed your first solar trash can, you were so proud of that moment. And for me, in being a senior lead officer for many years, it's, we need to hold the community accountable as well for cleaning keeping their streets clean. And for us and working with the law enforcement, we need to talk about illegal dumping and how big of an issue it is, and hold those knuckleheads accountable for continuing to dump in our alleys and our streets. We have the same issue in Watts, where we have a core group of volunteers, the Southeast CPAB, and also Clean Watts is a nonprofit that was formed to do just that. And once they clean an alley, days later, it gets dumped again. So it takes a partnership with everyone involved. I want to commend your actions and your efforts. Enrique, you wanted to say a few words about the program, and hopefully the report back is going to indicate how feasible this program is to go citywide, right?
That's correct. And I want to express our thanks to Councilman Sedillo. I know when he came into office, one of the first things that he did was come to our yard, and there he clearly laid out his vision for how something this fundamental needed to be addressed. As I know you have, Councilman Buscaino, in your district as well, trying to get at the root of the problem. But at some point, as you have said, Councilman Sedillo, this is inexcusable. But it certainly being able to find the root of the problem and eliminate it altogether is all of our goal. But the partnerships that you have talked about and the resources that you have identified being necessary in this has become a larger problem in the city. I mean, we used to think of this as just being pockets in the city. It's grown beyond pockets. Now it's entire communities, and we have a sense of responsibility as a department because this deals with solid waste. There's got to be many of us. I certainly can think back of it, a time where, as a young person, a young boy, you would go to the dump and get rid of stuff. Well, there are no landfills to take this stuff to anymore. I mean, not convenient ones anyway. And so we got to also look at it from that perspective. What is it that we provide so that people can more easily access the services and do the right thing, which is, we still are of the belief that they want to do the right thing. But in this pilot program with Councilmember Sedillo, we stretched ourselves to also learn and to be able to think outside of the box. The service that he talked about, being able to come to a person's home and haul this stuff out. Sometimes, we all know, it's heavy, it's inconvenient, it's hard on our back. It's not that easy to, haul a couch and bring it out to the curb, right? And so, we're being stretched and challenged in a very positive way. And I think what you expect to see from us is something that can be affordable and yet effective at really making more than a dent in the problem. So what we're putting together right now is a cost estimate. We certainly have a great basis now on what a comprehensive program would look like if we were to duplicate it or replicate it throughout the city. And as Councilmember Sedillo said, that can get expensive. $25 million if you just do a simple extrapolation of what we did in CD1, if we were to multiply times 15. Well, that's beyond what all of us can think of as being affordable. So what we're going to come up with is sort of a modest approach that we believe can lead us to an ultimate achievement of the goal. May not be immediate, but we believe we can get there. So we were going to propose that in the course of the budget process, which, as you know, is already underway in the mayor's office. So we're going to propose that actually in 2 weeks. Our packages are due next week to the CAO. No extension on that, for sure. So that's going to be a modest package that, will be somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 to $8 million. But we'll tell you what the resources, how our plan of action and attack is going to be, and largely based on our experience in CD1.
Good. So we'll you good?
Yes, I just want to make sure I appreciate the prudence, the fiscal prudence, but I don't want us to be shortchanged on this. This is our broken window theory, and it applies everywhere. And so we were successful in policing around the broken window theory, and I think we'll be successful in improving our city around this broken window theory about the trash and the bulky items. And so I don't, of course, everybody wants a Cadillac, and, you're going to bring us, I don't know, a small car.
No brands.
Depend any auto dealers. The first-time car. But keep in mind that the infrastructure is an important part of this, and the trash compressors are very important to this strategy, and changing the infrastructure is a very, very key component of this. So it's the manpower, it's the leadership, but it's also changing the infrastructure so that we make sure that people do have the places to put their trash publicly at visible points throughout the city, so it's very visible.
If it's okay with your committee, maybe the way in we can present our budget is one in which is the modest proposal, and one that would achieve a quicker turnaround, more comprehensive, that it's inclusive of a whole host of other things. And, we'll throw it in as well so that you'll have the opportunity to see both, and then you make the policy decision.
In your budget, do you account for public service announcements on, like, don't dump on LA? And I know you've had an extensive education outreach in this pilot program. What can sanitation commit to on the public outreach component?
It's a great point, Councilman. We can certainly commit to leveraging what we do. I mean, this last couple of months, going into the end of this month, we're doing our reusable bag, single-use plastic bag ban education, and that we're spending quite a bit of resources on that.
Okay.
And anything else that we do, definitely with all of our in-house advertising, including our truck signs and all of that, we can, by all means, leverage that at no cost.
Okay.
So we can do more of that.
Good. So we'll ask for a written report back to committee within the next 30 days if we can.
Very good. Yeah,
Okay.
we will have submitted our budget by then.
Okay,
so
good.
We'll have our numbers.
So we'll just hold this, Michael, in committee until we hear back. Thank you. Thank
Okay?
you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have members of the public for item number 2. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your patience. If you can read item number 2 in the record, please, Michael.
Item number 2 is a motion from Council Members O'Farrell and Martinez relative to protecting the Mexican elderberry and the toyin, including the feasibility of adding these two shrubs to the list of protected trees as set forth in the municipal code.
Thank you, Michael. Anyone here from Mr. O'Farrell's office? Come on up. Oh, and we have, looks like a part of the tree here.
Toyon.
There it is. So tell us about the Toyon and why it should be added to the list of protected trees in the Muni Code.
Thank you, Councilmember. Christine Peters, opposite Councilmember O'Farrell. The Toyon in 2012 was actually named the City of Los Angeles tree. So it's actually was part of a result of the drought-tolerant landscaping that happened around City Hall after.
And you're also adding the Mexican elderberry,
Mexican elderberry
right?
as well. So on April 17, 2012, the City Council designated the Toyon as the official city native plant in conjunction with the re-landscaping of the City Hall grounds to feature water-wise plants. The Toyon is a hardy shrub. It is found often in woodland habitats like the hillsides, which we have so many of in the City of Los Angeles. It's very compatible with the coast live oak. It's very sturdy, drought-tolerant, and it's also fire-resistant. So for those reasons, the Toyon is a very evident tree. It was also a tree that when people first started moving to California and the hillsides were peppered with the berries, it's one of the reasons why they claim Hollywood was named Hollywood, because it looked like a hillside of hollies. So it's probably one of the more prominent trees we have in our native species that we have in the City of Los Angeles. Why it was left off the protected tree ordinance when it was adopted, I'm not 100% sure. I wasn't on the committee at that time. But we are recommending that these two trees be added. The Community Forest Advisory Committee, which advises the city on urban forestry, has been asking for this be taken under consideration for some time. And then Councilmember Garcetti had been pushing to consider this. And when we came into office July 1st, we made a commitment to CFAC that we would help open the conversation and see if we can't have these two trees added to the protected tree ordinance. One of the things that, especially in our district and Councilmember Sedillo's district, is we're seeing a lot of development in our hillsides. And in particular, in our hillside areas, we have a lot of these types of trees that are naturally growing. And so when a large development comes in and removes these trees, they're not at this time required to actually do tree replacements. And so we're starting to see that as a habitat issue and the sort of biodiversity that we have. The berries themselves from both of the trees are eaten and then transferred amongst much wildlife, so birds, bees, butterflies, and then even ground mammals like coyotes and squirrels and gophers. So it's really part of our biodiversity and our sort of food system for our wildlife. So we would like to try and see if we can't have these added to the list.
I see our Chief Forester is here, George Gonzalez, if I can call him up. And one of my constituents, thank you, George, for being here. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this item.
Good afternoon, George Gonzalez, Chief Forester, Bureau of Street Services. And I was on the committee when we expanded what was the oak tree ordinance. There was an oak tree ordinance in Los Angeles that I think was enacted sometime around 1980 or so, and then it was expanded in 2006 with the work our Bureau and the Community Forest Advisory Committee. We actually deliberated for quite some time, a couple of years, as to what the intent of the expansion of the list was and how we would, how it would be enforced and what the mitigation process would be. So quite a bit of thought went into it. And both these species were considered, and many other species were also considered, and at the end of the day, they were dropped. A couple of reasons why they were dropped. One is these are shrubs, beautiful shrubs, very necessary and a very large component of the native habitat, but they are shrubs, not trees. That may seem like semantics, but I'll get into why that's important to us. So that's one reason. The other reason is that when we expanded the the oak tree ordinance to the native tree protection ordinance, one of the primary reasons we did that is as our inspectors were going out and inspecting locations that oak trees were being removed from, we noticed that sycamore, which is one of the protected trees, bay laurel, and walnuts were also being removed and essentially decimated. These are slow-growing trees, not trees that reproduce on their own very well. So that's when we decided that something needed to be done to try to protect these trees. The toyon and the sambucus, the Mexican elderberry, are ubiquitous. You go to many lots in Santa Monica Mountains.
I'm sorry, they're what? Ubiquitous?
Ubiquitous.
What does
They're
that mean?
everywhere.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
Why couldn't you just say everywhere? Just kidding. Just kidding.
Okay. So, they're everywhere. There's a lot of them.
So how do you plan on protecting them once they're on the list?
Well, the question is, do they need protection? Since they are they reseed from it's a food source for animals, birds, and so these animals will quote unquote plant these trees. So these plants do come up naturally, unlike the oaks and the sycamores, which were not regenerating naturally. So it is a naturally occurring and naturally propagating plant. The other thing, right now we do about 2 native tree protection ordinance inspections a day. So our staff is out on these, and 99.9% of these are on private property. So we have to go on private property in these hillside areas. So our staff is looking at what the makeup of the environment is.
And your staff of 4, right?
Yes, you're over-exaggerating how many I have, but no, very limited staff. You're right. So with this very limited staff, I asked them, how often are you seeing toyon? How often are you seeing Mexican elderberry? And they said that in the large majority of the cases, they are present. So we don't see that there is a need to protect them under the Native Tree Protection Ordinance. Now, is there a need for a habitat protection, a larger, broader, and I think there might be. And now that's a totally different question, because the way the Native Tree Protection Ordinance was set up, it's not really protecting habitat, it's protecting 4 individual species. And it's making sure that when they are impacted, that impact is mitigated. One of the difficulties that we would have if we were to expand this to these 2 shrubs is I'd say 60 to 70% of the trees that need to be mitigated because trees were removed because of whatever construction people were doing. When they need to be mitigated, about 60 to 70% are mitigated off-site. We're able to mitigate off-site because what they're mitigating with are trees. We plant trees in the public right-of-way. We don't plant shrubs. So if we were to mitigate these shrubs, which we know that they occur much more frequently than the 4 species put together, what do we do with the shrubs that need to be mitigated off-site?
Okay, I think what we need to do, and I want to turn over to members of CFAC who are here, this will all be included in the report back and see exactly how feasible this would be if indeed we would decide to move forward. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you for your presentations. I'd like to call up Richard Mayer, Chair of the Community Forest Advisory Committee. Thank you for being here. Followed by Lynette Camp. And then our last speaker on this item will be Claire Kenyon. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for your service to the CFAC as well.
Thank you. Do you want
Richard? Or?
He called you first.
I'll start first.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity of being with you today, Councilman. These 2 plants, first of all, Mexican elderberry is a small tree. It's not a shrub. And the toyon is a large shrub, small tree. So there are definitions, and they're not just shrubs. Secondly, These two plants are very important not only for the habitat, as George was describing, but really for our cultural heritage. And the city wouldn't have defined the toyon as an important plant, and I think we should be consistent with that in terms of our ordinances and so on. Thirdly, I think that these two plants, by expanding them as part of the protected tree ordinance, would greatly enhance our whole process in terms of construction and regeneration of plant material. I think one of George's primary concerns as I was listening to his testimony and his comments today was really more from a staffing concern and not really as much in terms of the plant material itself. So I would say that we need to look for a solution to this and try to expand the protected tree ordinance. Going to a whole new area of a habitat ordinance, we'll never get through the discussions on some kind of a habitat ordinance. I think we need to focus on these two plants as part of a protected tree ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Hi, welcome.
Hello, I'm Lynette Campy.
Describe your boutonniere.
My boutonniere is a little sprig of toyon berries. So I would much rather see people in Los Angeles planting toyon than English holly. My apologies to my friend to my right here. My point being is that California has a rich heritage of native plants. We have over 6,000, which is more than the other 48 continental states combined. And native plants use on the average 1/7 as much water as non-native landscaping. So if we're looking at sustainability for the city of Los Angeles, water resources are obviously a number one concern. And I think that by protecting these additional 2 native species under the Native Tree Protection Ordinance, the city is sending a message that this is appropriate landscaping for our areas, that the areas where it occurs naturally is where it will need little or no supplemental water, and it also serves as a model, as does the City Hall garden, for the rest of the city. You can see that they're beautiful, and well, I want to leave time for others to speak. I also take exception to them being designated as shrubs, that the elderberry is commonly known as a tree, and the toyon as a large shrub / small tree. The fact that they're commonly found means that there's a huge benefit to be made in protecting them. The largest loss of biodiversity is because of urbanization. So if we don't protect these highly valuable plants because we have them now, we will not have them later. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
For the record, Claire?
Yes, Claire Marta-Kenyon. I'm actually here. I am a member of CFAC, but I'm actually here for the Mount Washington Homeowners Alliance, who is supporting, wants to go on record as supporting this endeavor. The Mexican elderberry and the toyon are significant components of the ecosystem found in our hillsides, and I wonder if I can pass that photograph around, not photoshopped. These trees are rapidly disappearing from our hillsides due to lack of protection and any requirement to replace these species. In Mount Washington, we've had a specific plan for the last 20 years that protects all native trees. And when a construction of a house is proposed. However, there's nothing to stop a homeowner or resident from going out into the backyard and chopping down all the trees in the backyard without a permit. So they're disappearing. I've lived in Mount Washington for 35 years, and both these species are clearly disappearing from our hillsides. Clearly, brush clearance and just no regulation is what is causing that. I just want to point out that the city of South Pasadena actually protects all native trees, including coast redwood and California walnut, sycamore, Christmasberry, which is also the toyon, and the elderberries. And they also prevent them from being trimmed out of a certain method. They want certain regulations for trimming too. So it's not something that is untoward or unheard of to protect these trees. And I think that Rick was right when he said that this is mostly a staffing issue, George, than for protection of the trees. I believe he wants them protected, but I don't know, he feels like don't mean to speak for you, George, but doesn't know quite how he's going to manage that with the staff. But the staff do have to go out on site already to monitor the other trees.
And we hope to get that in the report back as well, the staffing feasibility, and see if this is financially feasible as well moving forward. Thank you all so much for your testimony. Mr. Sedillo, do you have any questions, comments, concerns on this item?
No, I think the report will be helpful. I think
Very
it's
good.
important to note, like in every matter that's before us, we want everything. We're for everything, but nobody wants to pay, so that's always the challenge. So that's a separate question. That's a fiscal question. The policy question is the questions raised about categorizing and the question of solutions in search of problems, right? And so you've articulated a problem that I had not heard yet. And so we finally hear somebody articulate a problem, and then what's the policy response for that? So that hopefully will come back, and there will be some metrics for it. So how many have we lost? How many, if there's a statement that it's ubiquitous, then what does that mean in terms of...
Sounds like a species of plant to me.
Right, what policy we develop, right, exactly. So
Thank you.
I trust that'll all be part of the report.
Okay, without objection, we'll approve this motion and move that forward. Thank you so much. Thanks for your time. And our final item, item number 5.
Item number 5 is a motion from Council Members Buscaino and Sedillo relative to amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code to eliminate any fees associated with sidewalk construction, reconstruction, and repair that is undertaken by the adjoining property owner. This was also also referred to the Budget and Finance Committee.
I'm having to move that. That's a great bill.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Sedillo, for partnering on this item with me on this motion. And we're really excited about moving forward on this and hearing back from the city attorney. I know Mr. Jordan is here as well. For the record, can you identify yourselves?
Good afternoon, Councilmember Buscaino and Sedillo. My name is Bené Sanchez. I'm with the CAO's office. And a motion came forward to amending the municipal code to eliminate any fees associated with sidewalk repairs that were undertaken by the adjoining property owner. The Bureau of Engineering issues 8 permits for small construction projects, such as sidewalk repair and reconstruction. They issue these 8 permits to ensure that minor street construction meets the city's design and material specifications. Fees are charged by the Bureau of Engineering and the Bureau of Contract Administration to issue the permits. Some examples of these minor types of construction include minor sidewalk repair, driveway installation repair, curb and gutter repair, curb drains, street repair for minor excavation. As a little note, the fees are already waived for damage to sidewalks caused by forces beyond the property owner's control, such as earthquakes or roots from trees that were located in the public right-of-way. Right now, there already is a pilot program to waive fees for residential property owners who elect to repair or reconstruct their sidewalks that are adjacent to their properties. That is just a pilot program. It started in August of 2004. And our office, and part of the report, is recommending that in order to continue the program, an ordinance is created and then adopted by the council. So we can keep this no-fee A-permit waiver for sidewalk repairs and reconstruction.
How many permits do we issue annually? These types of permits?
So for 2011-2012 fiscal year, there were 426 permits issued for residential properties to repair sidewalks. For fiscal year 12-13, it was 431. There has been some lost revenue due to the no-fee permits for these repairs to sidewalks.
What's that number?
For 11-12, there was only 52,245 out of a possible 167,430. For fiscal year 12-13, revenue came in at $57,975 out of a possible $172,246.
No, I mean, that's not much. I think and I've been saying we're getting an improved infrastructure. If we don't waive these, once we continue to waive these fees, we'll get our bang for the buck here, and I think we need to continue to move that.
Correct. If you were to make the decision to waive the remainder of the repair and reconstruction of sidewalks, you can expect approximately a loss of $58,000.
Okay.
And now this is just for repair and reconstruction, not for construction of sidewalks.
Right. So I think what we need to also refer this to Budget and Finance Committee, and then once they hear this item, we can take this to full council, and we'll ask the city attorney to draft an ordinance.
Okay.
Right,
You good?
because the part that's not in that is the benefit side. So you did the cost side. What's the?
Yeah, we'd like to hear the infrastructure benefit of it.
Well, so far for fiscal year 11-12, the quantity of sidewalks have been repaired 59,176, and for fiscal year 12-13, 64,219 square feet of sidewalk.
So we've seen an uptick.
Yes.
Okay. So without objection, we'll move this item forward, and thank you so much for your report.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. And will that be approved as amended to include the recommendations from the CAO?
Yes. Okay. We'll approve that as amended, and then also be sure that Budget and Finance. Here's the report. Oh, we did want to include commercial and industrial in the report as well, to ensure the city continues to be business friendly.
So that would be approved in the original motion?
So we'll approve the original motion.
Okay, so we're just going to send it approved.
Right.
And yeah, to Budget
Send it to Budget and Finance.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have one public comment speaker card, and general public comment, that is. If I can call up Don. Don, give me your last name. Garza. Welcome. Mr. Garza, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. That's nice to hear. No, I know you're welcome. But I don't need a microphone to speak. Anyway, I just wanted to just state some things, just to state them, since most of the time I come to City Hall to on business and not just to state things like other people just come to state things and get sued and sue the city. But I really appreciate our new city council. It's a very progressive city council. I have high hopes that this city council is going to solve a lot of the problems. I'm noticing in here, I was really impressed. Even in I went to another committee and saw the agenda. Infrastructure, you guys are doing it. You're protecting the elderberries. You're making sure we fix the sidewalks. It's almost like you're restarting the city, like making it come alive again. I'm just not. It's kind of interesting to see that. So, other than that, I really appreciate all the things that I saw this Thanksgiving with Gil Sedillo, with his support for downtown and bringing us 10 turkeys during the turkey drive. I saw a lot of the things on a lot of your Facebook pages that you were doing for the holidays that I know a lot of you guys do all year long. You guys do these things all year, not just Thanksgiving and Christmas. So other than that, I just wanted to say thank you. And it's important to me that I do say thank you within these halls, because even if the TV's not on in City Hall, I understand the symbolism within that room, and I know that the universe will hear me, and it will act on when I express my appreciation and my gratitude. And it hurt. It hurt what I heard downstairs. It really hurt me a lot. I didn't like what one person was saying. And it's going to hurt a lot of us that come here that want to express publicly our appreciation and our gratitude to those that, some people say we shouldn't reward people for doing their jobs. But in my opinion, it's very important, from the way I was raised in South Texas, that we do express our gratitude and we do express our appreciation, not because we want something in return, but because that's just the way, in my opinion, that the laws of the universe work. And because that's just the way it should be done. So I really appreciate you guys taking time out to listen to me.
Mr. Garza.
Mr. Chairman, let me say this for the record.
Yes, Mr. Sedillo.
It's extraordinary. This young man has battled a lot of challenges, and yet, with all his challenges, he organized a turkey giveaway
Wow.
over Thanksgiving. He pulled resources that even we would probably not do. He had one of the major clubs downtown, give him the space. He brought in a lot of leaders from downtown Los Angeles, and out of nowhere he pulls in turkeys for people who were homeless.
Wow.
And then working with the Midnight Mission, meals were prepared and served for thousands of people. And so he should be acknowledged and thanked as a good citizen of Los Angeles.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. You're an inspiration to us all, and thank you, Mr. Sedillo, for sharing that. With that, the committee has... Oh,
One last thing. I just discussed this item number 5 and the recommendations with the CAO. They said that within the motion recommendations, they were under the understanding that you would like to remove the word sidewalk construction. So I'll read it. So it would be...
okay, just for the record, why don't you read it, Michael?
Yeah, so what it would be is now that the city attorney, with the cooperation and assistance of the Bureaus of Engineering and Street Services, be requested to prepare and present an ordinance amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code to eliminate any fees associated with reconstruction and repair that is undertaken by the adjoining property owner.
Okay, we'll prove that as amended.
Good? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Committee is now adjourned. Thank you. Have a great day.